Have you ever struggled with aligning your actions with your goals? Well, a lot of the leaders that I work with, they've shared with me that they have. And the pain in that is that misalignment leads to missed opportunities. So what is the solution? Well, the solution is alignment builds connections. So what do you mean? Let me tell you this brief story, and then I'm going to give you 3 action steps as to how we can start aligning to build that connection in order to accomplish the things that we say we want to accomplish. So there's a story in the Bible about 2 women who had a relationship in terms of a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, and both of them had great losses in their families. And they came together, and the daughter-in-law submitted to the mother-in-law's will and journey in terms of she went back home with her. And she went back home with her in order to say, I'm going to commit my life to you. And since I'm doing that, I'm also going to need your mentorship and your accountability. Now, Ruth didn't really say that to Naomi, but if you read the story, that was pretty much the agreement. So what can we learn from their story in terms of applying that to our lives today? So there are 3 action steps that I'm going to highly recommend that you do and that I do in this work called life in order to make sure that we are in alignment and building connections to accomplish those things that we say we want to do. Action step number 1. It's important for us to discover with clarity of our goals. You know what? Ruth and Naomi, they had one goal in mind. Naomi had a goal of going back home and just trying to figure out how she's going to live the rest of her life. Ruth had a goal of committing her life to her mother-in-law. And whatever it took, she was going to do. What about you and I? People tell me all the time that, Dr. Jones, I have some goals. And when you really start talking to them about the goals, they really haven't discovered them because they don't own the goals. They don't have a timeline on the goals. So in reality, they really have not discovered them. So the first thing we have to do is discover our goals with clarity. Okay, number 1. Number 2, it's important for us to determine with the goals the priority. This is one thing that I've learned. When you determine what the goals are and make that priority and start working on the goals, you know what happens? The goals start working on you. I love in the story how Ruth was so committed to Naomi that Ruth decided, you know what? Now we're back in your homeland. Matter of fact, there are some people out there working in the field. I'm going to work in the field, even though I probably never done that before. But listen, I'm going to do that because that's part of me taking care of you. And in that process, she got in the whole field of great opportunities because that's where she eventually met Boaz, and the rest is history. So what about you and I? Have we really determined our goals and allowed our goals of the priorities to rise to the occasion to say, this is what we really need to be working on? And once we start working on it, it starts working on us? That's what we need to do if we're going to let that alignment build that connection. And then the last thing that is important for us to do is we have to drive those goals, drive our actions with accountability, with an accountability partner. Who was Ruth's accountability partner? Naomi. Because when Ruth came back from working in the field, she came back and reported to Naomi everything that had happened. She told her, say, you know what? I went out there working in the fields. Matter of fact, they took care of me. You know who I ran into? I ran into a guy by the name of Boaz. And all of a sudden her accountability partner says, you know what? He's related to my husband's family. And that's where the process began because she was already connected. Listen, if you and I can do these 3 simple things in our work today. Number 1, discover our goals. I mean, we don't have to let everybody else determine for us what's important to us and what our goals should be. It's important for you to do that. So number 1, discover that goal. Number 2, determine that goal. I'm talking about really determine the priority of it. Make sure it rises to the top in terms of this is the most important thing, and start doing that and let that thing start working on you. And then the last thing is drive our actions with an accountability partner. You know what? That's a lot of the work that I'm doing right now, is just helping people to be more accountable to the things that they said that they want to do. And you know what? That alignment builds connections. And so if you and I want to be successful with the challenges of today, with the uncertainty of the day, with the doom and gloom of today, all of those things, they're important, but they're not the most important thing in this thing called life. Let's focus on these 3 action steps in order to build our alignment that builds connections. I hope this video is helpful for you. Feel free to share it with your team or someone who you think could benefit from it. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.